Thanks for staying with us here on the JoyNews channel. Just gone by was the National Communications Officer of the National Democratic Congress, Sami Jainfi there, taking on President Akufo-Addo over what the party says is the failure of President Akufo-Addo to actually fight illegal mining. Just yesterday, of course, the president called for a bipartisan approach in dealing with the illicit activity which is actually destroying many river bodies. And according to the president, although the approach he adopted earlier against the minister has not yielded any positive results, politicizing the issue of the fight against illegal mining would not be desirable. For many of you who lost touch with the president at the time he was making that passionate appeal, here's just a recap of that interaction and stern warning by the president on illegal mining yesterday.
Even though for centuries we have been a mining nation, mining did not pose a threat to the health of our environment and water bodies. The rules that you put in place for mining ensure that the sanctity of our lands remained intact and our water bodies remained unpolluted. Tragically, in the modern era, that is no longer the case. And that is why I've come to you today to talk about how together we can repair this dramatic situation. Since I took office on 7th January 2017, nearly 6 years ago, I have made it a central feature of my presidency to lead in the efforts to rid our country of this madness, which we all now call galamsey. Indeed, it was an important aspect of my inaugural address of that day. It has not been easy, it has not been popular, and we have not got the immediate results that I was looking for. My stance on the issue cost my party and I significant losses in the mining communities. It turned out that my statement that I was putting my presidency on the line in the fight against galamsey was neither bombast nor recklessness. It was the simple truth. We have tried many initiatives, including that of the community mining scheme, and the establishment of a new legal regime for dealing with the perpetrators of this phenomenon, which has imposed severe sanctions on those Ghanaians and foreigners convicted of illegal mining. Still, we have not won the fight.
But the opposition National Democratic Congress is fighting back this afternoon with a response to the president. National Communications Officer for the NDC, Sami Jainfi, says the president is not staying true to his words of pursuing this matter on a bipartisan approach. Listen.
That is yesterday, 2022, at 1:29 p.m. Reports the president are saying, let's not politicize galamsey fight. And by 5:46 p.m., another story was published by the same portal from the same speech delivered by the president on that same platform. Only a determined effort in galamsey fight will help MPP break the 8. And so who is politicizing the galamsey fight? Ladies and gentlemen, how can the man, President Akufo-Addo, who stood on a political campaign platform in the year 2016 in Obuasi and promised to promote illegal mining, aka galamsey, when elected, lecture us on the need to depoliticize the fight against illegal mining? How is that even possible? And maybe somebody is hearing this for the first time. The person may not know that President Akufo-Addo actually promised to promote galamsey, and he made that promise on the campaign platform for votes. And so today, if he turns around to talk to us, sermonize about not politicizing galamsey, we should be asking him to be apologizing for that, first of all. And if you doubt me, listen to the audio recording that is being played now.
Well, so that's Sami Jemfi just a couple of minutes ago addressing the nation on the matter. In fact, there's more from the president. We'll be getting some reactions to this. But first, let's also bring you a separate development where President Akufo-Addo is equally warning that his office will not protect any person in his government found complicit in the fight against illegal mining activities. He has actually announced a new legal regime where Ghanaians found complicit will spend between 15 and 20 years in jail after being fined heavily. Severe punishments have been prescribed for foreign nationals, as is also been announcing in this very new legislation. Nana Yaljima has more in the following report, and right after that, we'll get some reactions to this.
Illegal mining operations have been rife in parts of the country. Some persons in high political offices have been accused of being complicit in the fight against illegal mining. These include the president's representative in various metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies, as well as party members. The president says the necessary evidence should be prescribed against suspected persons. At a meeting with the MMDCs in mining communities across the country, the president asked them to clear their names by enhancing their fight against the menace.
You are my representatives in each of your metropolises, municipalities, and districts. You are the representatives of the president. It cannot be that the president at the national level is waging a war against Galamsey, and you at the local level, my representatives, are compromising that fight. That cannot work. I'm not here to threaten anybody, but I want you to know that this is a struggle that I take very seriously. And I will not be in a position to protect anybody against whom evidence is masked about their complicity in this matter. What happens in Ghana is that there are accusations are made against people on blanc, MMDC. I don't operate with that. I don't operate with rumors. I'm a lawyer. So I'll always be dealing with facts. But if facts are brought, you will be invited to comment on it.
Already, the district chief executive for Bosome Frenhon, Yaudanso, has been summoned to clear his name in illegal mining activities in the area. President says the passing of the DCE's spouse is keeping him from responding to the call.
Your colleague in Bosome Frenhon, there have been public accusations about his involvement. He's been summoned by the Minister for Local Government to come and answer. Unfortunately for him, it has coincided with the death of his wife. And apparently tomorrow is the first week, the 1 week celebration. So he has not been able to respond. But when the 1 week celebration is over, he will have to respond. And depending on the quality of his response, we will decide what the future holds for him. But that is the process that we're going to apply to anybody against whom allegations are made. And
also, that's President Akufo-Addo there. And don't forget that my special guest for today on The Pulse is Lex Mode, former Chief Executive for GNPC. He'll be sharing his thoughts on the matter shortly. But first, let's get some insight into what transpired yesterday when the President engaged DCEs. Kwesi Bonzo is DCE for Elembele, and of course, he may not have been present at that meeting, but then he obviously has some insight as to what it is that has been going on in terms of the strict directives we're getting from the president. Kwesi, welcome to the program. You have been at the receiving end of countless accusations that you were engaged in illegal mining. In fact, your case is still pending before court as the Ghana Police Service is accusing you of stifling their fight against illegal mining. That's a separate matter. But looking now at what it is that we're receiving from the president in terms of his directive to you as the DCEs, what do you first of all get in terms of what it is that the president is seeking to do at this time on his new directive?
Good afternoon to your viewers. My issue has never been to court. The police, after their statement, never arraign me before court because
Okay, so they never proceeded. They've dropped the matter.
Yes, because the evidence that came out was to the contrary. It was rather the case that I was helping the police fight the menace, and then I became a victim of it. It's unfortunate I became a victim of circumstances, but that has not deterred me from the fight against Galamsey. Actually, I was at a meeting yesterday at the former Golden Jubilee Post Hotel in Kumasi, now Lancaster Hotel. And the president was clear in his mind that this is an issue that he takes very personally. And for me, Ghanaians should be thankful to President Akufo-Addo for that bold, decisive action to continue the fight against illegal mining. Because even when the president has issued those directives since 2017, when the president has showed commitment and determination to fight illegal mining, look at where we are as a nation. I have consistently said the actors in the illegal mining business are so many, they transcend party lines, and that there's no way we can win this fight if you continue to politicize it. It's just unfortunate that the National Communication Officer of the NDC would take the stand that he has taken, which is in sharp contradiction to the stand of his own flag bearer. In 2020, former President Mahama was captured on video telling his supporters at a rally that anybody who is arrested and in prison for Galamsey, when they come, they will give them amnesty. This is a clear statement of undermining of the fight of.
Yeah, but Kwesi, how different is that, for instance, from what we're getting from Sami Jeffrey this afternoon? He says that the president told you as the DCs in that engagement that how well you deal with the issues of Galamsey will further your chances of breaking the 8. That's also a political statement, isn't it?
No, that is not a political statement the way Sami Jeffrey wants the country to believe. You see, this Galamsey issue has become a double-edged sword. If you fight it, then this will fight you and go and support Galamsey's. If you don't fight it, they'll fight you and say that you're not fighting Galamsey's. In my constituency, in 2020, whilst I was embarking on anti-Galamsey operations, the NDC party in my district, in my constituency, Elembele, took advantage of it and went telling the Galamsey's that, look, this guy doesn't have your interest at heart. To the extent that I lost all Galamsey areas in my constituency as a parliamentary candidate. Recently, some 23 Galamsey's were arrested in my district and were prosecuted and were fined 2,400 Ghana cedi, which at the time I thought was even not deterrent enough. It will surprise you that the NDC took a position that they will have to get those people for the punishment.
Yeah, but I guess some would say.
The NDC has taken a position that they want to be always the winners in the fight against Galamsey. If you fight Galamsey, they will go on the side of Galamsey's, use every means to let Galamsey's understand that you don't have the interest at heart.
Yeah, but for you to say that the NDC is always on the side of the Galamsey's, it may not be entirely accurate. You'd be challenged to provide evidence to that. And in fact, some will go to the extent of saying that, well, in your faces as the governing New Patriotic Party, you have one of your own who's equally being accused of engaging in illegal mining. Chairperson of the New Patriotic Party in the Ashanti region. You were in that meeting yesterday. Why were you not able to tell collectively as DCs, the president, that he needs to start from his own camp, the NPP?
No, but that's exactly what the president did. The president was clear that he will not condone any DC, any appointee of his who will be accused of Galamsey with evidence. He was very clear in his mind. He never missed words in saying that. So, and I was in the meeting, and the meeting is a meeting of about 100 people with the press around. So the president has been clear in his mind that his appointees, and if the tape that you just played, so he cannot be fighting Galamsey as a president and his appointees are the ones undermining it. He's clear in his mind. I'm saying that for former President John Mahama to come out on 2 occasions, I've seen 2 separate videos where he has said that anybody in the unlikely event of he winning 2020 election, all those who have been in prison for Galamsey offenses will be given amnesty.
Yeah, but I'm asking you about your own camp. I'm asking you about your own camp. In fact, yesterday, the president talking about what it is that he intends to do with your colleague DCE for, I guess, the Bosomifro area. I'm not too sure of the precise location. But then he says the facts must be presented. What more evidence is the president looking for when, of course, your colleague has been caught on tape confessing to the fact that he may be engaging, supposedly, in some illicit
the rules of
mining
justice,
activities?
The rules of natural justice requires that he be given a hearing. Let me use my own case as an example. On the 7th of September 2022, this year, whilst I was looking for evidence of a missing excavator to which I had been accused by the police of being complicit, I was arrested. Immediately, the police issued a statement. Before Ghanaians could hear my version of the story, a lot of people believed that what the police was saying was the truth. It was only after I was given the opportunity of narrating my part of the story with evidence. So the president, what he has done is to summon him. Unfortunately, he's lost his wife. And of course, as humans as we are, when somebody, today was a 1 week celebration of his deceased wife.
Right.
So the president has already summoned him. Look, if there's anybody in this country who have shown enough commitment to the fight against galamsey, it is President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo from day one. And we have always said it, that this fight, the actors are so many. When you arrest one galamseyer and he's in police custody, and you, as a DC, you are the one who led the arrest, as I've done in previous 18 occasions, the number of calls that you receive intervening on the behalf of the galamseyer transcends party lines. That is why, as a country, all of us should realize that this whole thing of putting this galamsey issue on the political playing field and playing it up and down will not inure to anybody.
Okay, then.
And then the real actors get away with it, and they will blame each other politically, and then we are losing as a nation.
Kwesi, we need to wrap up now. Finally, what marching orders have you been given by President Akufo-Addo? And briefly, in just about a minute, tell me how you're going to implement that. For instance, in your own area, which is noted for some notorious galamsey activities, what do you intend to do differently?
Fortunately, as we speak now, with the issue at hand, I don't think there's any galamseyer who want to come to Elembele to do any galamsey because they've been dealt with decisively. Now, that's what the president wants from us as MMDCs. It's very easy to blame MMDCs, but sometimes MMDCs, we are helpless because we have to depend on the law enforcement agencies, depend on the police, depend on the judiciary in the fight. So that is why we need a concerted effort. Although we are chairpersons of various DISEC and MUSEC in our various municipalities and districts, without the support of everybody, we cannot fight. That is why the president has empowered us, has asked us to engage. He himself led the engagement with the chiefs, and the chiefs also realized that they too have a role to play. So this is a matter of national concern. For me, I would say it's a matter of national security. We should stop playing politics with it and then look at the real matter. Because the water bodies that have been destroyed does not know MPP or NDC. The lands that have been devastated affect both NDC and MPP supporters. We are all Ghanaians.
Yeah.
This is
except to say that unfortunately you may not have the collaboration needed or necessary from the NDC because they are not happy with the way the president has gone about this.
That's how they've always been, because it inures their benefit. Then they go and side with galamseyers, and then the galamseyers will look. Recently, there was a court case that was raised by my member of parliament, Honorable Manavago, in which, in his own affidavit to the court, he said that galamsey has communal benefit. This is the member of parliament talking about galamsey having communal benefit. That will be a conversation for another day.
Anyway.
But I'm saying that the NDC should show enough commitment and stop playing the politics of galamsey, because it will not inure to anybody's benefit. Ghanaians might stand up and tell the NDC party that, hey, in this fight, show us what you can do separately. So far, they are not even showing us what they can do separately, differently from what we are doing. They are only throwing acquisitions here and there, and without even basis.
Kwesi Bonzo, I'm grateful for your time here on the Pulse, and obviously giving marching orders there that it will not be attractive to engage in illegal mining. But the economy is also burning high. Obviously, we're focusing on that because Ghana is in a debt crisis. Guess what? The World Bank has classified the country at a high debt distress level as it projects the nation's debt to gross domestic product, GDP, of some 104.6% by the end of 2022. Now, although government is banking its hopes on the austerity plan with the International Monetary Fund, experts fear that the Bretton Woods will require debt restructuring as preconditions for rolling out the deal with the people of Ghana. Official sources are disclosing to us that although Ghana urgently needs a bailout funding, obviously the funds may not be available until the first quarter of next year. As part of the interim solution, the former Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, who doubles as a finance expert and has immense experience in the banking and capital markets, is calling for a haircut on the part of government expenditure to cushion Ghanaians. Well, guess what? I'm being joined via Zoom now by Alex Mould, who is former GNPC Chief Executive. Good afternoon to you, sir, and welcome to The Pulse.
Thank you. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well, and great to be hearing from you at this moment. Even before we get to the conversation, Galamsey has been on the top burner, or the front burner, I should say. So before we get to it, I'd like to take your thoughts on what we're hearing from the National Communications Officer of the NDC. It appears that that would then be the official position of the opposition party. He's not willing to receive that olive branch, figuratively, stretched out by the president yesterday when he says, let's go bipartisan and deal with the issues of illegal mining. Why is it so hard for the NDC to cooperate with government when it comes to the fight against illegal mining?
I think it's double standards and double speak on the part of the president. And that is what I believe most of us in the NDC do not think he's sincere on the matter. To think about it, you are the CEO of this country, and it's not a surprise that Galamsey is going on to you. It should not be a surprise because you have your representatives in every district. You are in touch with the people. You know what is going on. We got some reports today from the minister stating that only 2% of the farmlands in the cocoa area are affected by Galamsey. So that means that the president is aware of every single site that is undertaking Galamsey. Now, I think from the NDC's perspective, we were quite disappointed in the president's address. For us, it was more of a show to let people believe that things are being done. He never stated exactly what was being done and how it was going to be effective. The president is aware of every single site. He's aware of every single license that has been given. I saw a report that said that the Mining Commission, Mining and Minerals Commission has about 5,000 or 3,000 applications for mining still outstanding, and that could cause people to take the law into their own hands and do things. So I think the mining sector needs to be reviewed. There's a reason why Galamsey is lucrative, and it's simply because the miners do not undertake the expensive feature of reclaiming the land and cleaning the environment. So I believe that if the government had come up to state, for example, that they're going to ensure that one, they look at every mining area and make sure the Minerals Commission gives licenses to people. The Minerals Commission will also ensure that people are abiding by their work programs. If you are prospecting, you are prospecting. You're not supposed to be mining. You're not supposed to be making money from it. You're supposed to be doing exploration work.
Right.
So it needs to be very clear. And also, I believe that they license independent companies to clean up, and the payment for this cleanup comes from the miners. A lot of people will think twice about going into mining because, in the end, what's happening is that the taxpayer is paying for the reclamation of.
Right, and that's
for
what
the cleaning of the environment.
Right, and that's what I want to get to, the implication on the Ghanaian economy, because you would be able to, I mean, with your vast experience, draw the link. Where do we connect the dots?
Well, it's It's quite simple. There's a reason why people are doing galamsey. There are no jobs in the country, the price that the government pays the cocoa farmer, for example, is abysmal. I just heard that we pay something like 20-something cents a kilogram, whereas what's it called? Ivory Coast is paying something like $1.20 a kilogram. I don't know how far that is true. I just got the report. I'm reviewing it to make sure. If there's that imbalance, you're going to have a moving towards Ivory Coast. And I think even the loan that we've taken, the $1.1 billion loan, we may not be able to service it. So the fact of the matter is that if there are no jobs in the rural areas that there are alternatives, like I'm saying, you're going to have people going to that. What we should do is do proper community mining, make sure that there are designated areas, make sure that the rules of engagement are very clear as to what is required of the mining companies. And if we do not believe that they will clean the environment or they will protect the environment, we should have independent bodies licensed to ensure that this is done. And we need to get everybody on board. We need to get it should be part of the KPIs, the key performing indicators of the district CEOs. We should have the all chiefs involved in this to ensure that they also have a say in what's going on. And I think there's a lot to be done. What I'm not hearing from the government is exactly what is being done. You can't fight a war unless you understand your enemy, what your enemy is doing. I think it's just lip service they are paying to the people of Ghana, and the galamsey will continue, and our bodies will be contaminated, and we're going to see less farmland being used for farming, and it's going to affect the economy, and then we're not going to be able to be producing our food in a sustainable manner.
And Mr. Mould, if you just speak directly to the camera from me, I'd love that. Let's get to the economy. Some say that you were consistent in sounding the alarm bells when in August this year you raised some concerns about how we're inching closer to completely depleting our forex reserve, which would later affect our standing in terms of our economy. How is it that government did not pay attention to you at the time you were raising these calls, and what do you suspect may have been taking place at the time?
Well, I don't think it's paying attention to me. I don't think government was paying attention to what the market was saying. This started last year, October, when the bond prices started dropping from 90 to 80, and this year continued dropping to 70, and it's accelerated, and the bond prices in the capital markets now are between 35 and 40 cents on the dollar. I mean, anybody in the capital markets, anybody who is talking to the in the capital markets will understand what was going on. We didn't have to wait for Moody's or S&P to downgrade us. We were downgraded by the market already. The market is the pulse of what is going on, and they actually can predict because they have more information in a timely manner than the likes of S&Ps and Moody's. What surprises me is that the Minister of Finance and his team did not see these signals. And if they did see these signals, they did nothing about it. When we alerted them, they brushed it over, said we would go to IMF. And somewhere beginning of this year, by February, after looking at their budget, knowing that they wouldn't be able to make the budget numbers, looking at the gap in the financing and ability to go to the capital markets, we knew that Ghana was on a free fall and spiraling downwards. All they kept on doing was propaganda and letting the people of Ghana believe things were okay. Unfortunately for them, or fortunately for them, Ukraine occurred, and they could blame it on Ukraine. Ukraine had absolutely nothing to do with Ghana's free fall. Ghana's free fall started last year, October. They blamed COVID, which was in 2020. We recovered from COVID in 2021. We started seeing growth in the markets, but because they had not put things in a sustainable manner, we were not able to see the growth, and they were not able to control the spiraling downwards.
Right.
You have to manage your expenditure. If revenue is a problem, the first thing you do as a company, and government is the biggest business in Ghana, you have to manage the expenditure. We saw lip service played again, saying that they were going to cut expenditure by 30%, and as a gimmick, they did not tell the people of Ghana that it was only 30% on their discretionary spend. When you have your debt service, which is mainly interest payments, not even amortization, and your the wage bill totaling over 70 billion, more than the revenue you're going to make, you know you are in a doomsday scenario.
Right.
And
So I guess that's what's leading us to where we are today. But the widely held perception out there is that if you take a look at the Ghanaian economy, we've been described as a donor darling. The fact that we're always going back to the Bretton Woods. We've been there 16 times already. So how unique is it going back for this 17th time, knowing the government says, well, it's our only way out at this moment? What's so different or extremely bad about the decision now to go to the same place we've been 16 times?
Well, I don't think it's a bad decision to go to the IMF. Actually, it's the only decision you could make to go to the IMF, because we've never been in this position before. Never. The current position we are in, where our debt is almost 100% of our GDP, where we have a huge forex crunch. We've never been in this position where our debt service has surpassed our wage bill. So this is a different scenario, and don't let anybody fool anybody that this is the same as 2014, or it's the same as when we went HIPIC. We are in a bankruptcy mode. People should understand Ghana is in bankruptcy. That is where we are. And if you are in bankruptcy, any finance person or any accountant will tell you that we are in what we call debt financing. We have to talk to our creditors. We have to put in some austerity measures. We have to reduce our wage bill. We have to reduce our expenditure. We have to cut all the discretionary spending, and we have to realign things. The problem is we have a structural issue right now. So it is not just going to the IMF, but it's more of a look into the causes of our current predicament. And we need all the finance people and the economists working together to fix this problem. To fix this problem, you have to be sincere and true to yourselves. The debt that is being shown is actually less than the actual debt government has. Government has debt parked in the SOEs like GNPC, Ghana Gas, VRA, Electricity Corporation, and all of those areas. Either they are direct debts due to losses made in the past, or contingent debts, which are debts that the government will have to finance over time. So the predicament is far worse, and the debt sustainability analysis that the IMF is doing is going to reveal a lot, and which is good for Ghana, because we will know our actual position, and we have to work with the IMF to see how much and when they can help fund the gap that we have. Secondly, we need the IMF, more importantly, to take us to the creditors, the various creditors. Because we are not credible right now, we need some credibility. And the IMF working with us is going to bring credibility for us to negotiate with our creditors, especially the multilaterals and the bilaterals creditors we have. I think the biggest problem we have right now is the local debt. the debt service of the local debt, and whether the proposed haircut will only affect the debt, the local debt holders, or it will affect the foreign debt
We'll get to the solution shortly because you've been calling for that haircut approach. But government, and I'm sure you've heard this by now, has been consistent in making the argument that circumstances accounting for our decision to return to the IMF is not comparable to any other regime. Do you agree when that refrain is made that COVID-19 and the Russian-Ukraine war is what's accounting for where we are now?
I agree that our going to the IMF this time is not comparable to any time because of the gross mismanagement that has occurred in this government. Like I said, we don't have enough foreign exchange to meet our foreign exchange demands. We don't have foreign exchange to meet our fuel demands. Because of our downgrade, most of the foreign banks have reduced the limit of exposure to Ghana. That means that we do not have trade lines to trade. We don't have enough lines to bring fuel into the country. Government has to give an emergency license out to international oil companies because the local BDCs could not bring in products to meet our demand. So an emergency license was given to the international oil trading companies to bring products into the country. And they had to give them some sort of comfort that they have the foreign exchange ready for them. I don't know if any of the IOTCs actually did bring products into the country. The foreign exchange we got from Africa Development Bank and also now from the syndicated loan is supposed to last us, more than 3 quarters of the year. It's not only for this quarter. And the market has taken that into consideration as well. And that is why the CD is now at 11. We are at 11 CDs to $1 as of today. And it is projected that by the end of the year, we could be close to 12 CDs to $1, mainly because, one, a lot of investors are taking their money out and the foreign exchange is going to convert the CDs that they invested in our local bonds to take their foreign currency out of the country. And two, there's going to be, we are entering the Christmas period. A lot of imports are going to come into the country, and there's going to be a run on the foreign exchange as well. So the Bank of Ghana and the Ministry of Finance have a lot of work to do to convince investors and convince the markets that there will be foreign exchange available.
Right.
But the holders of Ghana's debt, the trade debt, are the international banks. And once they have reduced their lines, it means that we don't have the credit anymore to be able to trade, and that will put more pressure on the city.
And in fact, this is where I want to just bring up your post one more time. A couple of days ago, you wrote on Facebook, and I'm just reading exactly what you put up there. That quote: "If you are bankrupt with ideas of how to meet your debt service, and the only way by which you would want to reduce that." And we'll definitely get all of that, but it's on the screens now, clearly indicating that, and let me just read that one more time, that if you are bankrupt with the ideas of how to meet your debt service and the only way is by reducing people's savings, then you need to be fair and also institute savings. You need to be fair and also institute a haircut in government payroll as well. That was actually your post a couple of days ago, just before we moved into this month. By this statement, are you first of all, by the statement, suggesting the government is out of options on how to run the economy and by extension, this country? Is that what you were suggesting in that post?
The government was out of control of how to run the economy long ago. It's not currently. And that's why we're in this predicament. And they have no options. And that's why they have gone to the IMF, because the only option they have is to reduce our debt service. They don't have any options of increasing the revenue. They don't have any options. And they are in a corner where they can't do much. And the IMF is going to be their savior. But you see, most people don't misconstrue what the IMF does. The government has to bring in their plan, a a performance improvement plan. And that performance improvement plan is what the IMF is going to look at to see whether it is sustainable and whether it can help the government get out of this predicament or not. Secondly, if the debt sustainability analysis shows that our debt is so high, the debt service is such a drain, it has shown over the years that countries that have been in our position have been asked to have haircuts on their debt service. That means that they would either reduce the interest payments one way or the other, and to reduce your interest payments, it means you are either reducing the principal or reducing the interest rates. It's easier to do that on the local side than the foreign side. Because on the foreign side, when you in the capital markets, you have a lot of groups that can take you to court, and it can be a prolonged situation. So the main option they would have, if the debt sustainability analysis shows that we cannot meet our debt service going forward, there will have to be a haircut. All I am saying is that the haircut, especially to individuals, stifles savings. Any country that does not have people putting money in savings and rather putting money in their beds or buying other assets like land and cars, that economy cannot grow.
Yeah, but in terms of practicality, what practical measures, talking about that haircut approach, what practical measures would you want to see government roll out?
Well, I don't know. The options they have are limited. Like I said, they have to reduce the debt service, and the only way you reduce debt service is to reduce your interest payments, and that is what they are saddled with now, and they have to do that. To do that, you have to have a haircut. So I know that a haircut is imminent. It's going to happen. The real question is, who is it going to affect? Is it going to affect the banks that have about 35% of the bond of the government security market? Is it going to affect the 11% of the individuals? Is it going to affect the 6 to 7% of the pension funds? Is government going to be selective who it affects? But what I'm saying is, and please listen very carefully, any government that does a haircut to individuals or will stifle savings. If you stifle savings, people are not going to put money in banks, and that is going to have a ripple effect on the economy, because the banks are the intermediaries for loans to these companies that need working capital. And if there are no funds to these companies are going to also fold. It's going to cause job losses. So the government is in a pickle, and I think they've run out of ideas, and they really need help. They should have done this, in my view, 2 years ago, around the end of 2020. They should have reviewed, cut the expenditure, especially on the discretionary spending, especially on the landmark policy programs that do not add anything to our GDP. They should have looked at the sectors that we should have invested in and encourage private investment in those sectors, especially in food, in agri, so that we do not have the kind of inflation we have now.
Let's come to the extractive sector, for instance. It's one of the critical areas of our economy. Of course, it should have been a blessing for us, knowing that as such as a developing nation such as Ghana, we're blessed with gold, cocoa, diamond, bauxite, petroleum. Of course, you've managed some of these assets before. Yet there are concerns, for instance, from Guta, that the juicy parts of the Ghanaian economy, i.e. mining, petroleum, they've been sort of hijacked by foreign nationals, a reason for which we're not self-reliant. Do you share the same concern coming through from the business community?
I don't think it's been hijacked. I think basically the foreign investors have had access to capital, especially financing from banks and from investors in their countries that the local investors have not been able to have. And as such, most of the Ghanaians are rather foreign investors, and that is why it looks like the foreign investors are predominant in these sectors, especially when it comes to the buying of gold and the export of gold. You find a lot of foreign companies that are dominant there. But when it comes to the mining, it's the Ghanaians who do the mining. They do the mining together with the foreign investors, be they Chinese or other nationals. So I don't think that there's anything stifling the local entrepreneurs from being in the mining sector, apart from the fact that access to finance in these areas is difficult, mainly because maybe the banks do not understand the risks or they're not comfortable with the risks in these areas, whereas the foreigners are able to get financing to do that.
And then there's the banking sector, very critical sector, of course, issues of payment of pensions as well, which are all at risk now. The government is carrying out some debt restructuring. It is inevitable at this time that we're going in for austerity measure. This is where, of course, some blame your political party, the National Democratic Congress, for partly bringing us to where we are today due to the underperforming banking sector when you were obviously in charge of the economy. Do you take responsibility, and by extension I'm talking about the NDC, whenever the conversation comes up, but that a reason for which we're not able to have liquidity in the system and our forex depleted is simply because you did not run the banking sector properly. You have expertise in that area and you've been out of power, you have hindsight. What is your personal assessment of that process?
First of all, I think it's quite disingenuous to blame the NDC. Actually, the NDC put a lot of laws and acts in place to help us in the banking sector. And we can see most of the reforms that have gone in the banking sector were actually passed in the NDC time. First of all, if you look at the cleanup of the energy sector, it was the NDC that put ESLA in place. ESLA is the one that is responsible for cleaning up the petroleum downstream sector and also part of the power sector. The NDC also put in place some other acts which has helped in terms of ensuring that banks had enough capital adequacy to do their business. Yes, maybe the banking sector, especially the inspectorate sector, could be better this time around to ensure that we identify the banks that are illiquid, the banks that have high non-performing loans, and things are put in place. A lot of things were put in place for those banks that were shut down. For example, there was absolutely no reason to shut down Heritage Bank. It was shut down not based on any banking infraction or inadequacy of capital or anything. It was just shut down for political purposes. Now, once you shut down banks based on that, you're going to have a systemic issue with the banking sector. There was absolutely no systemic issue with the banking sector when we left power in 2027. There were a few banks that, yes, they don't meet the capital adequacy, but what happens is that the Banking Supervision Division works a performance improvement plan with these banks. The central bank then isolates these banks and gives them liquidity so that they can come out of it. And that is what you do. You have to support the banks. Banks were supported in England. Most of the national banks were supported in England, or they became partially issue with the banking sector. Unfortunately, this government decided to choose the alternative, to shut down the banks. And something rescue these banks eventually has cost us 25 billion, and we hear there is even more to come. So the question is, why spend 25 billion when you could have actually spent 9 billion, brought all these banks to check, clean their balance sheets, and let them continue running? And the reason is simple, political. They had to close these banks down to clip the wings of this supposedly.
Yeah, but clearly there was a challenge. There was a challenge with the banking system. I don't think it was just solely a matter of partisanship, if you want to put it that way.
No, for example, I told you there was no reason to close Heritage Bank down. The other banks had programs in place. They had programs in place to fix their capital inadequacy challenges, their liquidity challenges. And what the central bank does is that the bank will isolate you, and the central bank will put you on watch and ensure that you do not violate any of the indices that they have agreed with. That is what the central bank does. And of course, if there are banks that cannot come out of the program, the performance improvement program or plan, and those banks definitely will have to be either absorbed by another bank or liquidated. But that was not the case. I don't recollect any case where any of the other banks could not have done, because most of the debt that these banks had were debt to contractors who were owed by governments. So if government paid these contractors, they would pay their loans, and we wouldn't have that high non-performing loans as it were. So a central bank should not be politicized. It should actually ensure that the Ministry of Finance does the right things. A lot of debt is hidden. A lot of debt of government is hidden in arrears. And I am hoping that the debt sustainability program, the analysis that is being done by the IMF, is going to unveil all of this debt. We have over 10 billion in the power sector. We have over 10 billion here in the roads and the education sector, and in the health sector as well. So we're looking at something between 30 and 40 billion debt that is hidden, either in arrears or debt that the SOEs, the major SOEs have. And all of this, for us, is important that it's unveiled so that we know the actual debt position of this government. One more thing I would like to say is that the debt that is being projected at about 104% by the end of the year is actually far more than 104%, because they are using an exchange rate of about 9.6, which is Bank of Ghana's fictitious interbank rate, whereas the commercial banks are actually trading, not the black market, the commercial banks are actually trading and selling foreign exchange to the BDCs at close to $11 cedis per dollar. Now, why are we showing a 9.6 exchange rate that nobody is using in Ghana, not even the central bank? Why are we showing a 9.6 exchange rate? The only reason is to lower the debt position, because 50% exchange, and a move from 9.6 cedis per dollar to 11 cedis per dollar immediately will move our debt by almost 5%. So government is the pickle again. We have to ensure that they do the right things. Before the IMF came, Bank of Ghana was showing an exchange rate of 8.5. As soon as the IMF came into town, you saw a jump from 8.5, 8.6 to 9.5, 9.6. Well, I wonder why the central bank all of a sudden realized that our exchange rate was 9.6. 1 week ago it was 8.5. That's a question we should all ask the central bank.
And we'll see if indeed we'll be getting some answers through. Alex, before I wrap up with you, obviously you belong to a political party, the opposition NDC, which is carrying out reorganization at this moment. What's your assessment of that process? And what do you see?
I couldn't hear.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me as well?
Yeah, I didn't hear the question.
Right, so I'm talking about your political party. Before we go, you belong to the NDC. That's a party that says they are, at this moment, carrying out some sort of reorganization for victory in 2024. The New Patriotic Party says it is bent on breaking the 8. What's your assessment of the reorganization process so far, and what chances do you see for the NDC going forward?
Well, the reorganization has started, and we're talking about reorganizing the grassroots level branches to ensure that we get the right executives and who our members are, we get the right executives at the branch level and at the constituency level, the regional level, and the national level to lead this party forward. Never have I seen such enthusiasm in the party as we see today in terms of the caliber of people who want to be branch executives, caliber of people who want to contribute to the party in terms of organization, in terms of structure, and in terms of leadership. So NDC is in a great place as we speak. We are united to ensure that we do our best to remove the NPP from government, to save this country, to bring in policies of the people, programs of the people, so that we can get out of the rot, the mismanagement going on, and the complete, utter neglect of good governance going on in this country.
Alex, when next the NDC returns to power, and this is on a lighter note, I guess we may be seeing you in one of the ministerial portfolios, right?
Well, that's for our president and the leadership of the party to decide whether, I am of the caliber to help them achieve it. But I will be playing a part. I play a part in every part in the Ashanti region, in Greater Accra, where I live as well, to ensure that we have a strong organization. We are building an institution that's going to last for a long time. We are attracting high caliber people into the party. We're making people proud to be NDC members, both from the professional area. We are allowing people to have a voice in the NDC, and we're going to continue doing this. So everybody has a voice in this country. We don't intend stifling anybody who wants to contribute towards the well-being of Ghana.
I'm grateful for your time here on The Pulse.
I'm very grateful for this.
Right. So that's Alex Mould, former GMPC Chief Executive. You're watching The Pulse here on the JoyNews channel. When we return, we'll talk about the flooding in the Ghana South municipality. The Electricity Company of Ghana is working hard to restore connection to that area. We'll tell you all about it when we get back. And you're welcome back to The Pulse. The Electricity Company of Ghana says it is working to restore power to Bayan in the Greater Accra region. The area has been cut off the national grid for days now owing to the overflow of the Denso River, which flooded several homes, displacing well over 1,000 persons in the area. The Electricity Company of Ghana is this afternoon indicating that it's working around the clock to restore power supply. So let's get to it now. Let's bring in Fred Bainball-Johnson, who happens to be Accra West PRO for the ECG. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. First of all, how was the ECG affected as a result of this flooding we witnessed in the Ghana South area?
Well, since Tuesday, the 4th of October, we've been having reports from some residents that their areas were flooded. And so once these reports came in, we sent our men onto the field to have a look at it. And the technical decision was taken to curtail power supply to these areas. Now, primarily, it was for two reasons: to safeguard lives and property, and also to make sure that our installations in these areas are also safe. So since Tuesday, some areas have been off. And by virtue of the fact that areas now don't have access to power to use, it means that in terms of our revenue collection as a company, we are losing out. We are not able to make money from the power that people would otherwise have used and paid for. And also, we have some areas where, for our ground-mounted transformers, we have the areas around which they are flooded. And so some of our ground-mounted transformers are sitting in flood waters. But as of yet, we've not been able to have access to these places to fully assess what the damage is. And so we await. However, power has been curtailed from these transformers to the various places they were serving.
Let's get to the issue about the cost. Are you able to tell us how much you've lost so far as a result of this flooding in the area?
Well, currently, we are not talking numbers. Like I said, our immediate goal is to make sure that as much as possible, the power we are already supplying to our customers is safe. And so areas there will be a challenge. Don't forget that, water is a very good conductor of electricity. So we're all aware of what the dangers could be if there are flood waters and then any of our lines either drop in there or there's access to electricity and there's any challenge. So our main objective now is to make sure that lives and property are safe, that there's no risk to them. Then once we move forward and we're able to deal with the immediate problems, we shall look at the numbers. But certainly, because people in these areas now are not using electricity and therefore are not paying for the electricity they are not using, it means that we are losing out in terms of revenue. And so it's a loss to the company. But comparing that to the lives and property that would have been at risk, I believe that that's a safer choice to make. So yes, we are on the losing end, but then because we are trying to safeguard lives and property, we are better off doing that than the alternative.
Fred, I'm equally interested, for instance, in your equipment. A lot of them may have been distracted. Are you able to, a lot of them may have been destroyed as a result of the flooding. Are you able to tell us some of the equipment that have been damaged as a result of this flooding? And what are you able to tell us as to the exact reason for which the entire area is being taken off the national grid?
Yes, so I mentioned earlier that we had some opinion leaders and some local political leaders about the levels of water that was rushing into their communities. To do technical assessments, and we realized that it was safer for us to put off power so that the various relief measures and the various measures that are being put in place are handled. Now, the assessment so far has shown that for some areas, the water levels are receding, and so we've been able to restore supply to a couple of communities that were initially off. We are still doing some further assessment today, and hopefully by the close of the day, if we get the green light, we shall be putting some other areas on as well. As a company, don't forget that it's the electricity that we sell. And it's in our interest if more people get access to electricity and use it, because it's only by using and by paying that we make some money. But we are not prepared to do this at the expense of life and property. So that's been the consideration so far. And we are working very closely with the National Disaster Management Organization, that's NADMO, and other agencies on the field. So as and when we get the green lights that it's safer to extend supply to some areas, we would do so and extend supply to them.
Let's now get to the official reason why there's been a blackout in the area. What are you able to tell us on that?
So for now, for the areas which are off purely because of the water levels in their communities, we are monitoring. Like I said, we are working with the NADMO. And so at regular intervals, we get updates on what the levels are. We also send our technical men onto the field, and so we get to see and do an assessment. So for these areas, once the water levels recede to levels that will be safe for us to restore supply to them, we will. Now, the other areas where supply is given by our ground-mounted transformers, and I mentioned that these transformers now, some of them are sitting in water. So we would have to do a certain technical assessment of the state of the transformers when the waters have receded to a certain level. So for those areas where the transformers are in water, we'll need some time, because once the water levels go down, it means the technical team has to go in there, do an assessment and check whether it's good enough to immediately restore supply from those transformers, or we will need to do some technical works on them to get them to the levels where they can supply power to our cherished customers.
Now, to the issue about safety, because obviously you're restoring power in a few hours from now. In fact, some of the areas are already active. There's the question about safety, because when you have the floodwaters receding, some homes may still have elements of water still on the compound, and in the wake of that, there are concerns about some lines stripping and others falling into some of these receding waters, which may raise issues about the safety for many who are household consumers. So how is the ECG going about the issue of creating awareness on safety and the very cautious way by which many can restore power into their homes?
Educational programs with the various communities is something that's always ongoing. We have this interactions with the various assemblymen and the various communities. Now, because we took off power as a result of safety concerns, What it means is that before we can restore, we would engage the various communities, and together with the other allied agencies, NADMO, the Ghana National Fire Service, and all who are on the ground and working, we're able to communicate well to the communities before power is restored. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are some communities that currently may not necessarily have high water levels or high flood levels, but there's a technical team that does the assessment. So it's only when we get the green light that it is safe enough for us to restore power that we do so. So before power comes back into any community, often we engage them, let them be aware of what to do. And we have hotlines available that anyone who is in any distress or anyone who sees anything can call on. First of all, the district, that's the Botiano district under which this area falls, is available. And also call center line, which is 0302 611 611. Once you're in any distress, once you come across anything which is of danger, please alert us so we can get the technical team in to deal with the situation.
All right then. And we'll have to leave it here. Fred Bimbo Johnson, thank you for your time here on The Pulse. It's time now to connect you to Africa. Campaigning public by all political parties in the Federal Republic of Nigeria ahead of the general elections is underway, and of course that has started in earnest. According to the electoral laws of the West African country, campaign officially commences 150 days before polling day. Officially, 18 candidates are vying to become President Muhammadu Buhari's successor and the 16th president of the Republic of Nigeria. For now, we're confirming that only one woman is amongst the 18 presidential candidates listed by Nigeria's Independent National Electoral Commission. Let's get more details now. Joining me via Zoom is Shola, who's the diplomatic editor at AIT. Thank you so much for your time here on The Pulse. The last time we were engaging, it was about security. Now it's about elections in your country. What are you able to tell us about the mood in Nigeria right now as the campaigns kick off?
Okay, thank you, Blessed, for having me on the program. I hope I am within your shot.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, can you see me as well? Sorry, just to get back.
Well, we're having challenges seeing you right now. So if you could just get that on for us so we're able to, of course, connect to that and also try and get a feel of what's happening in Nigeria. While at that, obviously, I need to say that there's a lot of interest in the Nigerian election back here in Ghana, obviously because of the potential numbers we're talking about, over 76,000 in terms of the official figures we're receiving as to the number of Nigerians who are here working and going about a number of activities. So what's the mood like there in your country as the campaigning kicks off?
Okay, thank you, Blessed, for having me on your program, though at short notice, but of course, that's broadcasting. We need to continue to make effort to contribute to discussions of national, regional, and global discourse. The mood in Nigeria is quite interesting. Like you just mentioned, the whistle has been blown for political campaigns to commence. That was last week. And not a few of the political parties and their candidates have already tried to hit the ground running with respect to setting up presidential campaign councils, because all eyes are on the presidency, actually. It's a general elections. It involves 28 state governors, 360 House of Representatives seats, and 109 senatorial seats. And of course, there are also state assemblies, and 963 seats are also being contested for at that level. So it's general elections in Nigeria next February, which will stretch into early March. All eyes are on the presidency, like you said in your introduction. 18 candidates, and for those of us who do the analysis, there are actually 4 who are the front.
I guess you're not being fair you're not being fair to the 14 others when you say 4 in all, right?
Okay, well, recall I mentioned that there are 18 of them, and 4 are front runners. You know, at times, you know, in politics, we allow the numbers to come to the fore, but we also deal with the polls and the strengths of the various candidates. With due respect to the 18 of them, I want to play up the fact that there's one of them who is a lady, She's the presidential candidate of the Allied Progressives Movement, Chidera, Miss Chidera, that's her name. So one lady out of a pack of 18 presidential candidates. So we quickly need to look at these four, because all eyes are on these four. The others will have votes, definitely, but all eyes are on these four. The incumbent is run out 2 terms, Mr. Muhammadu Buhari, so he's not up for any form of election. But his party, the All Progressives Congress, the APC, has a candidate, a strong man in that party, who was a former governor of Lagos 2 terms, who was also a senator in the aborted Third Republic. That's in the 1992 to 93 diarchy that we had, when the military was at helm of affairs with the civilian setups, just slightly beneath that. So Mr. Bola Tinubu he has not been in the country. His presidential campaign spokesperson, who is an incumbent Minister of State for Labor and Employment, is a lawyer, Festus Keyamo, was asked on national TV just yesterday, where is your candidate? He says, well, my candidate is in London. And interestingly, for that same political party, it had a date last week to flag off its presidential council, but it did not. The presidential candidate is not in the country. The vice presidential candidate of the party has been the one doing some form of legwork for the party. That's one of the candidates. The other big one is a former vice president of Nigeria during the early part of this Fourth Republic, Atiku Abubakar. And Atiku Abubakar is running on the platform of the People's Democratic Party. He's 76 years old. Some say, well, as a septuagenarian, that he's quite old. But he says, I have the wherewithal to fix the country, the challenges facing Nigeria. There's also Peter Obi, and his supporters call him and his campaign the Obedient Movement. He was incidentally the running mate to Atiku Abubakar in PDP in the 2019 election. But on the verge of the primaries of the PDP sometime in May, he pulled out of the party and joined the Labour Party. Not a few pollsters say he is a leading candidate to beat. But of course, he's from the Igbo ethnic stock, an ethnic group who says, look, it's our turn to produce the president of this country. And there's also Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, who was also in the APC, who later moved to the PDP. He's now running on the platform of the new Nigerian People's Party, and he aims to step in. He was a former Minister of Defense, was also a 2-term governor of Kano, and also a senator. Pleasure. Interesting profiles there, and it's getting all exciting. But Shola, we'll definitely find some extensive time to talk about the Nigerian election as it's heating up, but some updates there, and we're grateful that you've been able to make some time for us. Elsewhere in Europe, the counteroffensive continues in Ukraine, with Ukrainian troops also retaking some more territories in regions illegally annexed by Russia, in the south near the city of Kherson, and in the east, where they have been consolidating their gains while Russia held some sham referendums, as has been referred to legitimize their presence. So let's get more from our partners at DW. Emmanuel is joining us now. You've recently been in liberated cities, actually, of the northeastern region of Kharkiv. Just give us an idea, first of all, Emmanuel, of the kind of incidents that you witnessed there, the devastation going on in some of that.
Well, what we see from official sources are scenes of joy and flags being raised at the entrance of cities. When you drive to those places, when you start to talk to people, well, the reality is also that of cities completely devastated. There's a lot of destruction. All the roads have been shelled as well. So you see craters all along the road. You see burnt cars. You see destroyed houses, destroyed schools. And I was in the recently liberated city of Izium, where unfortunately the Ukrainian armed forces uncovered mass graves. So there were over 450 bodies which had been recovered. We were there on the second day of those bodies being exhumed. They all bore traces of torture. So the reality in those liberated cities is a very dark one as well. The inhabitants I could talk to are the people who couldn't escape Russian occupation. They often don't have running water, they don't have electricity, there's no phone coverage in those regions, so a very, very dire situation in the aftermath of the Russian occupation.
Interesting. And how about Russia itself? We know that they've recently done some so-called referendums, if you want to call them that way, in occupied territories. They're neither recognized by international law or the international community nor by Ukraine itself. Will the results change anything on the grounds for one of the sides or the other?
Well, you know, first off, there are so many people who fled Russian occupation in those regions. You know, sometimes 90% of the population has escaped. So de facto, people who are voting there are those who remained, who are in a fragile position, who were often forced to vote at gun range as well. So those results are not recognized by Ukraine. They're also not recognized by the international community. If anything, is going to change something for Moscow, who now can use the pretext of defending its own, what it considers its own territory, but on the Ukrainian side, it doesn't change anything.
And just to bring in this, there's also more talk about the risk of the use of nuclear weapons by Russia against Ukraine. What do you make of those attempts by Russia?
Well, there are two fears in Ukraine on the ground. Of course, there's that of a missile strike in one of the country's nuclear power plants. We saw such missiles falling not too far on the central, near the central of Zaporizhia, for example. And of course, there's the fear of seeing Vladimir Putin deciding to use a nuclear weapon against Ukrainian troops or Ukrainian civilians as well. Of course, many call it bluff so far, but there is still that fear that something similar could happen in the next weeks, in the months to come.
Anyway, Emmanuel, I would have to leave it there. Definitely, we'll get back to you. Our partners at DW for some updates on what's happening in Europe. You're still with us here on the Pulse of the JoyNews channel. When we return, we'll tell you about some exciting packages at the Labadi Beach Hotel. Please stay. And you're welcome back to The Pulse. I'm sure that by now you're wondering what Oktoberfest is all about. Well, there's a lot of exciting activities going on at the Labadi Beach Hotel, which you need to know about and hear about because it's about to get exciting. Guess what? George AC, the head of sales at the Labadi Beach Hotel, is joining us this afternoon to tell us all about Oktoberfest. So let's get more details by first of all welcoming George into our studio. George, it's good to see you here on The Pulse.
Thank you, Blessed. Good afternoon. It's good to see you.
Oktoberfest.
Yes.
Normally when October comes up, some say it's about Breast Awareness Month. Others are also doing more just to create some excitement ahead of the festivities in December.
Yeah.
So what's Oktoberfest for the Labadi Beach Hotel?
Blessed, thank you, and good afternoon to your viewers. Oktoberfest is the biggest beer festival in the world,
right?
Which is celebrated in Munich, Germany. This event spans 2 weeks, which normally starts actually from September, 17th September, for 16, 17 days of fun and a lot of activities. It started, I can't go back into the history properly, but it started as a celebration for the then crown prince who was getting married to the princess, as far back as 12 October 1810.
So this is a royal celebration.
It is, and this celebration has been ongoing for over 200 years. Every year it is celebrated in Munich, Germany. And Blessed, it is interesting to know that all over the world, some 6 million people travel to go to the festival.
That's how big it is.
I'm telling you, mainly these travelers are tourists who want to explore and have some fun and then identify themselves with the culture of Germany and then also the traditional food and everything, the environment. So it is something that we have come to embrace And over the years at Labadi Beach Hotel, we have also done this thing, which has really gone well.
You're basically bringing Germany to Ghana.
Absolutely, absolutely. The warmth that characterizes this celebration is something that one needs to be part of. Yeah,
I'm getting excited already. But tell me about who's coming this year.
So Oktoberfest, normally, apart from the food, the traditional food, the eating, the dancing, some wonderful music and all that, comes with a lot of fun activities. And so you have a lot of things going on. When it started initially, there was actually horse racing to climax the festival. And we here put a lot of things together. You'll be coming to the festival and have a lot of fun to do. Now, besides this, and the band that we're going to use to provide entertainment, it's called the Bayan Boys Band, who have just arrived in the country.
Oh, they are here already?
Yes, they are at Labadi Beach Hotel, scanning the environment, getting themselves ready to give wonderful patrons who will be coming to Labadi this weekend. Some wonderful entertainment, some great fun. And again, this platform serves as a networking opportunities. Because in here you have diplomats, you have...
who will be coming around as well.
Certainly, high commissioners, ambassadors. You know, this is popular among Germans and then also globally, like I said. One thing I must say is that, as the name suggests, it's October Beer Festival. Oktoberfest Beer Festival doesn't mean that it's only going to be beer that is consumed.
I was about asking that question, because when you say beer, there are some people out there who would say, well, I want something lighter. So what provisions are you making for such?
A lot.
Persons?
So predominantly it is beer that is consumed, because the Germans are known to be producing one of the best beers. But again, you have your cocktails, your mojitos are there, or your all the cocktails you can name it. I personally don't drink beer, but I've never taken myself out of the fun. Every year I've been part of.
Because aside the beer, there's a lot more.
And then if you don't actually eat proper or traditional German food, you can order your own things from the a la carte, which is also there. So the most important thing is to be part of the festival, be part of the celebration.
It's more about connecting with
that
people
is the point.
and
getting
point. To learn what happens elsewhere.
And like I said, and then it brings also the warmth, because you're also having people that you can also tap into a database that is really high profile, if I may put it, because you have all these government officials, the ambassadors, the high commissioners, and all the diplomats are coming. So it's going to be 3 nights of fun.
Exciting times ahead. What more should we be expecting aside the beer and then the band that will be performing there?
Very well. So it's going to be 3 nights of entertainment beginning tomorrow.
Okay, so it's just not a one-night package.
No. When like I said, it's normally like a 2 weeks festival, but we have replicated same, but not exactly with the number.
So
we have done 3 days.
3 days.
And this Friday, beginning tomorrow at 6 p.m., we have someone coming from the Embassy of Germany to signify the opening of the festival in Ghana, which is tapping of the keg for the outpouring of the first beer to run through the taps. And that opens the festival. And from 6 p.m. till midnight tomorrow, it's going to be all fun, food, dancing, a lot, playing together. Then it continues on Saturday, which also starts at 6 p.m.
Oh, so it runs even into the weekend.
Absolutely.
So weekday should not be an excuse for someone who says, well, I was working. You still have the weekend, at least one day.
Absolutely.
Just to catch some fun.
Certainly. Then we climax everything on Sunday. So Sunday is when it ends. But Sunday, the beauty about this is that we want families to be involved and to have some fun. So it's not just going to be the mummies and then the daddies. We've created an environment, very, very conducive environment for families, for kids to have their playgrounds whilst mommy and daddy continue having their wonderful time together.
You know, earlier when you were saying, well, we have a lot of high-profile persons there, diplomats, well, people start saying this will be a restricted event. How open is it
to
the general public?
Yeah, that is the beauty about the whole thing. This celebration, people really, I'm not saying they do not care about their status in society, but it is an environment, opportunity where everybody understands. And so there is no gate fee, there's no entrance fee, but once you come there, you're expected to be part of the festival by, partaking in the meals, the drinks, the food, the fun, the dancing, and everything.
George, you know what? I think we're giving too much out.
Absolutely.
Let's remind our viewers of the date and the time again.
So beginning tomorrow, 7th of October at 6 p.m. Then it continues on the 8th, Saturday at 6 p.m. till midnight.
Right.
And then on Sunday, which is the family day, it actually starts in the afternoon from 2 p.m. and runs to 8 p.m. We won't go beyond 8 p.m. on Sunday because, the next day we all have to go back to work.
And our pastors will be looking for us.
Certainly, certainly.
So let's talk about any possible contacts for reservations.
Certainly. For reservations, people who want to be part of this celebration can call 0544 431213.
We need to take that slowly.
0544 431213. And the second number is 0302 772501. All these numbers are active, and then once you call, our staff are on standby to assist you make your reservation.
In 30 seconds, just speak to my audience for me finally on October 1st.
October 1st is here at Labadi Beach Hotel. As always, we are looking forward to excitement, great weekend of fun-packed activities. We're going to have a wonderful time. You have no reason to be home. Be part of this culture, be part of this experience that you will live forever and cherish.
Right. And indeed, you should be joining George AEC and our friends at Labadi Beach Hotel for that exciting package. 3 days, of course, straight. You need to be a part of it. But for now, we draw the curtains on the pulse here on the JoyNews channel. I'm blessed Sogah. We'll see you again tomorrow. But for the meantime, just log on to myjoyonline.com.